You might think that Nigel Farage might have been very, very happy with his referendum, of course, on Brexit. However, Nigel Farage has been constantly calling for another referendum to happen. And that referendum is on net zero. Now, bear in mind what would even be the question of that. I mean, the many people said at the time and have said even since, and I will agree, a yes or no being in out of the EU referendum just did not really signal to the British people just how complicated Brexit was going to be, and still is, and of course the many problems that was going to be. It also did not highlight many of the subtle differences when Leave was saying, sure, we're not going to leave the single market and customs union, and then of course these Brextremists push to leave the single market and customs union. Would of many people, knowing that that was going to happen, have voted for leave if they knew that they were going to leave the single market and customs union after being told by leave that, they weren't, that only a fool would leave the single market and customs union, as of course quoted by Daniel Hannan. And thus now you get this whole idea of a referendum on net zero. What would then in practice that actually mean? I mean, if it's just what should Britain go net zero? What should the question be? What should the options be? And then what would then be the consequences of such a referendum on future government policy, or even stopping any potential future government policy? Because, can't do that, referendum and all. So you have now these exact same fossil fuel mad, crazy people saying we need to now to abandon net zero, spreading lies, ridiculous stuff about all this stuff. But it is hurting UK investment massively so. But you've got people like Ed Miliband, who is doing an absolutely fantastic job in his role. He gets the brief 100%. He knows what he's going to do, and he is rallying on that to fight for all that stuff. He has been doing an absolutely fantastic job doing that. So we're going to have a look today at this. Going over to the Mirror actually today for the very first time, I believe. Having a look what they've got to say on this. And yeah, they get it absolutely right here. That these very same people who sold this unicorn Brexit wonderland that we would have had outside the EU are now trying to do the same for net zero and green energy. And if they succeed here, oh boy, if you thought Brexit was shooting ourselves in the foot, then we might as well just amputate the leg as well at the same time, because that is going to have a huge impact if they somehow manage to succeed on this. So before we go, of course, more into this, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, you've got the Patreon page, the Buy Me a Coffee link where you can, buy me a coffee, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, as always, there is the Pony Club down below as well. So, as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel that way. And of course, let's crack on with today's show. So, over we go to the Mirror. The title of Those Who Now Falsely Flogged a Glorious Future Outside the EU and Now Spread Lies About Green Energy. So, beware the Brexit snake oil chameleons, for they are turning even dirtier and spouting poison against Britain now becoming a green energy superpower. And again, we could be a green energy superpower. The government just has to go in that direction and support it through subsidies, through investment, through attracting private investment as well on these things, from getting things, maybe other European countries involved as well. If we want to turn the North Sea into a big, green, wind-powered, super-powered farm, getting countries like Belgium, the Netherlands, Germany, Denmark involved as well, and France is going to be an absolute must, because that will be a fantastic way, and they would absolutely jump on that as well, because it could generate huge amounts of power. But You've got to be able to do it. You've got to have all the stuff to be able to do it. But you need to get those involved as well. And becoming that green energy superpower is there. It is doable. You just need government support, government subsidies, attract private investment, and the right policies in place. But of course, remember, you've got all these, again, all the people who support a Brexit are these exact same people who are now turning against Britain becoming a green energy superpower when it is imminently possible to do it. So these con artists now who falsely flogged a glorious future outside the European Union are now today's fossil fools now screaming against electrifying life. The Kemi Badenochs and, of course, Nigel Farages are now eager to try and change the conversation from Brexit-induced poor growth, bigger bills, failing trade, and record migration, and, of course, longer passport queues are now trying to divert attention by suddenly trying to scapegoat net zero. And this is it. This has been their thing for a while. That, oh no, you don't understand. If we go towards net zero, we will get degrowth. That this is just a degrowth agenda. It's not going to happen at all. Not going to result in degrowth at all. We will enter probably a brand new green industrial revolution if we can go in this direction. But we need to be in the race to be able to do it. So cheaper, cleaner, even secure and sustainable, and of course renewable energy is for them now the new EU boogeyman. The Brextremists were, of course, demonstrably wrong about our European exit, and of course, they will be proved false prophets too about renewable power. The electric vehicles are now, of course, their latest battleground. The whole world is now driving into that future with a market now for petrol and diesel cars vastly declining. Ultimately, unfortunately, though, some UK manufacturers, including Stellantis at the Vauxhall plant in Luton, now earmarked for closure, were, of course, slow to innovate and invest. The inconvenient truth, now ignored by the Brexit anti-green dinosaurs, has now been revealed by the Bedfordshire factory's former owner, Mark Noble, who said that the troubles began with Brexit. In itself, now created uncertainty over the exports, which compromised 80% of the output from Luton and its sister Vauxhall plant in Ellesmere Port. Labour, of course, Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds also then rightly recognised the very punitive £15,000 a pop sales penalties now inherited from his predecessor Badenoch, which now requires reviewing. Yeah, Kemi Badenoch doesn't mention that, does she? When she talks about electric vehicles, doesn't mention that she added that. But by going backwards and, of course, abandoning new cars for the 2030 now to be even hybrids or electric would be, of course, waving a white flag to these ideologues. These prehistoric monsters have now very set in their mindset in the past, who now object to the very same men who objected to scrapping men with red flags now walking in front of the early automobiles. Building Britain into a green superpower is now one of the 5 missions Keir Starmer will hammer home this week, alongside boosting economic growth, cutting crime, reviving the NHS, and expanding the opportunity. Eco-socialist Ed Miliband was once a low-watt Labour leader, but is now shining very brightly as Energy Secretary. Whitehall mandarins have even acknowledged that he's a very capable minister, and experts are very impressed of his grasp of the brief. The EU haters completely distorted reality that brought us into a very disastrous Brexit. But now they're here at it again, trying to rubbish the greener future. They must not be allowed to succeed. Going forward, it is very crucial to Britain's prosperity, not to mention the environment and even protecting the planet from a climate nightmare. Let us hope that once again, that once Britain, twice shy, these snake oil peddlers suffer now their own car crash a second time round. How successful will they? Well, of course, we hear this all the time from these exact same people. That, going in the net zero direction is just wrong. It'll bring about degrowth. It'll be awful. It will be terrible. However, as I often like to remind people, because I have a copy of Britannia Unchained, and one of the people in at least name on the front cover you should recognize as Chris Skidmore. Now, Chris Skidmore, terrible Tory. Disagree with him on every single other policy. However, Chris Skidmore was someone who got net zero. He got the net zero agenda. He got that we had to go and build towards a greener, brighter future, because that had huge possibilities and for the direction that the planet was going in. And he knew it. He understood it. When he was given the boot by Boris Johnson, he still continued to do his net zero tour around the UK. And I got the opportunity to see it. And oh boy, again, disagree with him on a lot of his other politics, but as someone who was a Green Tory who got the net zero agenda, he was right on the money. He was absolutely right on the money when he talked about it. And now it really does seem, especially with Kemi Badenoch in charge, that they are going to sort of pursue that. Now, will we get maybe a Green Tory revolution, to push back against this lot, to push back against the stuff that Kemi Badenoch has said about not pursuing, a greener, brighter future? Will they push back on her on this? Who knows? Will we end up, of course, heaven forbid, she wins the next general election, will we end up with another David Cameron maneuver where she just bans the building of offshore wind farms? There is a lot of stuff to be really worried about at this. And a slide backwards now, especially when you've got someone like Ed Miliband, who, again, really gets it, really gets going to that, greener, brighter future, really gets it, talks really good, really passionately about it as well. Labour really need to start using him more, putting him out there, making videos. And they do. Ed Miliband makes a lot of videos himself about it as well. Labour should be sort of using those and sort of promoting those and sharing those about. He does. He gets it. He sells it very, very well about why we must go there, about what we must do. And he is someone who definitely, in the future, I could see having another bite at the Labour leadership cherry. I think next time, if he ever does become leader again, he will be very, very good indeed. So definitely someone who gets it, pushing for a brighter, greener future. We are seeing sort of moves on this in our current government to sort of go in that direction. Just need to really start to fight against these people who are now using the exact same nonsense to start spreading lies about green energy. That, if we go into green energy, we'll get all these blackouts. Other countries have gone in this direction. Do they have these rolling blackouts? No. So, yeah, they need to be called out for their lies. But it's difficult because, again, not a lot of people are experts in sort of green energy out there to sort of come and fight against these people. It's exactly like, we saw in the EU. Look at any sort of, look at the bizarre stuff going on at the moment in archaeology of Flint Dibble, an actual proper archaeologist, where he is fighting against all these pseudo archaeologists after he absolutely destroyed that guy on the Joe Rogan show. They're very, very upset with him at the moment. But yeah, definitely something to be pushed back against. And of course, to be really real, get the public on board. This is the direction we're going on. Remember, we talked about communication. Why are we doing this? What are we doing to get there? Why we need to do this? What's the consequences if we don't do in this direction? All about, of course, communication. And I think Ed Miliband, very, 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 very good communicator when he talks about green energy. So we'll see what happens in the future. But let me know what you think down below. And of course, as always, I'll see you all next time.